The messenger's hands are still shaking. Dust coats his torn robe. Blood streaks his face. He's running so hard his lungs might burst, because the news he carries will shatter a man's world. Your oxen were plowing, he gasps, collapsing at Job's feet. The Sabaeans attacked. They killed all your servants, all of them. I'm the only one who escaped. Before Job can process this, a second messenger sprints into view. Fire fell from the sky. Your sheep, your shepherds, burned alive. Only I survived. Job's wealthy estate, built over decades of wisdom and hard work, is crumbling in real time, but the nightmare has only begun. A third messenger. The Chaldeans raided your camels. 3 raiding parties. They murdered your servants with swords. Job's wealth gone, his workers slaughtered, but he's still standing, because nothing matters more than family. His 10 children are safe at his eldest son's house, celebrating together, as they often do. Then the 4th messenger arrives. This one can barely speak. His eyes are hollow with horror. A mighty wind swept in from the desert. The house collapsed. Your sons, your daughters, all 10 of them, in one afternoon. Job lost everything except his wife and his breath. The wealthiest man in the East became the most devastated father who ever lived. No time to grieve one loss before the next wave hit. No chance to prepare. No explanation. Just silence from heaven and ashes on the ground. What do you do when God allows your entire life to collapse in a single day? When every good thing you built, every person you loved, every security you counted on vanishes before sunset? Job's answer will challenge everything you think you know about faith. You don't have to lose 10 children in one day to know Job's pain. You just need to live long enough. Maybe it was the phone call at 2 a.m., the diagnosis that changed everything, the pink slip when you had bills due, the betrayal from someone you trusted completely, the miscarriage, the accident, the addiction that destroyed your family, the door that closed when you'd prayed so hard for it to open. We live in a world where catastrophe doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes tragedy texts you during lunch. Sometimes it arrives in a doctor's office on a Tuesday. Sometimes it's a drunk driver, a failed business, a rebellious child, a mental breakdown. The question isn't whether suffering will find you. The question is what you'll do when it does. Job's story confronts the deepest wound in human experience, the seeming silence of God in our darkest hour. We cry out, "Why?" and hear only echoes. We beg for relief and receive more affliction. We search for meaning and find only confusion. Modern culture offers cheap band-aids for this ancient wound. Everything happens for a reason. God needed another angel. It's all part of the plan. These platitudes insult both our intelligence and our pain. Job's friends tried the same thing, theological formulas to explain away mystery. They failed spectacularly because some suffering doesn't come with footnotes. Some pain doesn't resolve into neat life lessons. But here's what Job's story does offer: a way to hold both devastating loss and unshakable faith in the same trembling hands. A way to say, "I don't understand, and I still trust you," in the same breath. That's not toxic positivity. That's the kind of faith that survives when everything else is stripped away. Let's step into Job's world, because the details matter. Job lived in the land of Uz, likely in the time of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. This places him around 2000 BC, before Moses, before Israel's Exodus, before the law was given. Job was not an Israelite. He was a Gentile, a man of the East, proving that God's reach extended beyond any single nation, even in ancient times. The text describes him with superlatives, the greatest man among all the people of the East. His wealth was measured in livestock, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a large household. In an agricultural economy, this represented generational wealth, careful stewardship, and extraordinary blessing. But Job's greatness wasn't in his portfolio. The opening verse says he was blameless and upright. He feared God and shunned evil. His integrity was so legendary that God himself bragged about Job to Satan. Yes, Satan, the adversary, the accuser. Here, the curtain pulls back to reveal something unsettling, a cosmic courtroom scene in heaven. The angels present themselves before God, and Satan comes among them. God points to Job as Exhibit A of human faithfulness. Satan sneers, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Haven't you protected him? Take away his blessings, and he'll curse you to your face." God permits the test first jobs, possessions, and children, then his health. Not because God is cruel, but because the question Satan raised must be answered. Can a human love God for who he is, not just for what he gives? This is not a morality tale about Job earning suffering through hidden sin. This is a cosmic drama about whether authentic faith can survive the furnace. The historical Job didn't know about the heavenly courtroom. He didn't know why. He only knew the facts: faithful obedience, then sudden devastation, just like you. Job 121 contains 6 words in Hebrew that have echoed through 4,000 years of human suffering. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. Read it slowly. Let it disturb you. Job didn't say this after years of therapy. He said it on the worst day of his life, while his children's bodies were still being pulled from rubble. He tore his robe, shaved his head in mourning, and then fell to the ground in worship, not resignation, not stoic numbness, worship. This verse is scandalous to modern ears. We want God to be a cosmic vending machine. Insert prayer, receive blessing. When the transaction fails, we demand a refund and write angry reviews. Job's theology was more dangerous and more true. God is sovereign, even when he takes away. God is worthy of praise, even when he allows devastation. God's character doesn't depend on my comfort. Notice what Job didn't say. He didn't say the Sabaeans gave and the Sabaeans took away. He didn't say bad luck gave and bad luck took away. He traced every thread, blessing, and tragedy alike back to the sovereign hand of God. This is where modern Christianity often goes soft. We'll praise God for promotions, but blame the devil for demotions. We'll thank God for healing, but attribute sickness to natural causes. We want God's sovereignty edited for our sensibilities. Job refused that comfort. He stood in the wreckage and said, "You are God when you give. You are God when you take. You are God in the giving and God in the taking, and I will bless your name through both." The text adds, "In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing." That's the turning point. Not that Job understood, not that Job felt better, but that Job chose trust over accusation, worship over bitterness, surrender over rebellion. That's the faith that survives. Job's response reveals a philosophy that transforms how we face every Monday morning. God is the constant, not your circumstances. Our culture builds identity on variables: career, health, relationships, bank accounts, Instagram metrics. When those variables shift, we shatter. Job's faith was built on the one invariable, God's character. This isn't positive thinking or spiritual bypassing. Job wasn't pretending everything was fine. He mourned deeply. Later, he'll curse the day he was born, demand answers from God, wrestle honestly with his agony. But his foundation never cracked. God is God, whether I understand him or not. Here's the practical philosophy. You don't need answers to have faith. You need anchors. Job's anchor wasn't an explanation for why bad things happen. It was a person who remains good when bad things happen. Big difference. Think about it. If God gave Job a detailed explanation that day, here's the cosmic chess match. Here's Satan's role. Here's what I'm proving. Would that actually heal the grief? Would knowing why resurrect his children? Some mysteries don't need solving. They need enduring. And we can endure what we can't understand if we trust who holds the outcome. This philosophy dismantles our addiction to control. We spend exhausting energy trying to make sense of suffering, as if correct theology could inoculate us from pain. Job shows a different way. Radical trust in the midst of radical confusion. The philosophy extends further. Your worst day doesn't define God's character. Your best day doesn't either. God is who he isn't, changing, sovereign, good, regardless of what today looks like. This is the faith that survives job loss, diagnosis, betrayal, loss. Not because it makes the pain less real, but because it's built on bedrock instead of sand. When circumstances are your God, every change is an apocalypse. When God is your God, every change is still held in sovereign hands. So how does Job's ancient philosophy translate to your actual life? It's Monday. Your alarm didn't go off. The coffee maker broke. Your kid is melting down about school. Traffic is gridlocked. Your boss emails before you arrive. We need to talk. Job's faith doesn't exempt you from the meltdown. It reframes it. Instead of spiraling, why is everything going wrong? God must be punishing me. My life is cursed, you breathe Job's theology. The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. This day is hard, but God is still God. I don't understand this morning, but I trust him this morning, or it's worse than a bad Monday. It's the diagnosis, the miscarriage, the betrayal, the bankruptcy. Job's faith gives you permission to grieve honestly while trusting deeply. You don't have to perform cheerfulness. You don't have to explain God's mysterious ways to anyone. You can say, I'm devastated, and I'm standing on the rock anyway. Practically, this looks like, in financial crisis, I don't know how we'll pay bills, but I know God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. I'll act responsibly and trust ultimately. In health crisis, I'm terrified of this diagnosis, but my life was already in God's hands before the test results came back. I'll fight and I'll trust. In relational betrayal, this wound cuts to the bone, but God has never betrayed me, even when people have. I'll heal honestly and hope courageously. In career devastation, my job doesn't define my worth. God gave that role. God allowed it to end. I'll grieve the loss and watch for what's next. The Monday morning version of Job's faith isn't superhuman. It's stumbling forward with tear-streaked face, saying, I don't have this figured out, but I haven't let go of God. That's enough. That's always been enough. After Job's initial worship, the story darkens further. Satan returns to God, skin for skin. A man will give anything to save his own life, strike his body, and he'll curse you. Permission granted. Job is afflicted with painful sores from head to foot. He sits among ashes, scraping his skin with broken pottery, unrecognizable in his agony. His wife, also grieving 10 children, also watching her husband's torment breaks. Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. Can you blame her? She lost everything. Her logic is brutal and human. If God allows this, He doesn't deserve loyalty. End the suffering. End the faith. End it all. Job's response: you are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Notice, Job calls her perspective foolish, not her. He's not condemning his wife. He's correcting the theology, and his response reveals the impossible obedience, accepting trouble from the same hand that gave blessing. Everything in us screams against this. Our instinct is to obey God when He's generous and rebel when He's severe. We want conditional loyalty based on favorable treatment. Job is modeling something almost inhuman: unconditional faithfulness, not based on understanding, not based on fair treatment, not based on visible rewards. Then Job's 3 friends arrive. They sit with him in silence for 7 days, the best comfort they offer. But when they open their mouths, they become tormentors. They insist Job's suffering must be punishment for secret sin. They turn his grief into an inquisition. For 37 chapters, Job wrestles. He defends his integrity. He demands answers from God. He curses the day of his birth. He's raw, honest, desperate, but he never curses God. That's the impossible obedience. Staying in relationship with God, even when the relationship feels one-sided, painful, confusing. It's choosing trust when bitterness would be easier. For 37 chapters, Job demands God explain himself. His friends pile on accusations. Job's confusion deepens. The tension builds until it's unbearable. Then, in Job 38, God speaks from a whirlwind. But God doesn't answer Job's questions. He asks his own. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Have you ever given orders to the morning? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Does the hawk take flight by your wisdom? For 4 chapters, God catalogs the cosmos mysteries of creation, the wildness of nature, the intricate design of everything from mountain goats giving birth to the constellations wheeling overhead. The point isn't to humiliate Job, it's to expand his perspective. Job has been demanding explanation from his limited vantage point. God reveals that the story is infinitely larger than Job's suffering. There are dimensions to reality Job can't perceive, purposes he can't fathom, wisdom operating on scales he can't measure. God never says, "Here's why I allowed your children to die." He says, "Here's who I am. Can you trust me anyway?" Job's response is the breakthrough. I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted. Surely, I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. Then comes the stunning reversal. God rebukes Job's friends for their bad theology and vindicates Job's honest struggle. God restores Job's fortunes, double what he had before. Job fathers 10 more children. He lives to see 4 generations. He dies old and full of days. The restoration doesn't erase the loss. Job's first 10 children were not replaceable, but it demonstrates that God's story isn't finished when ours feels over. The breakthrough wasn't in getting answers. It was in encountering God Himself and discovering that His presence is sufficient even when His purposes remain mysterious. So here you are. Your life might not look like Job's story, or maybe it does. and the pain is fresh and raw. Either way, Job's faith extends an invitation. What is your one obedient step today? Not tomorrow, not when you understand, not when circumstances improve. Today, right now, in the middle of confusion, what's the next faithful step? Maybe it's getting out of bed when depression says stay down. Maybe it's sending the resume when discouragement says there's no point. Maybe it's forgiving when bitterness feels justified. Maybe it's praying when heaven feels silent. Maybe it's showing up to church when your faith is hanging by a thread. Job's obedience wasn't heroic. It was incremental, one breath, one moment, one choice at a time. He didn't conquer suffering. He outlasted it by continuing to trust. Your obedient step doesn't have to be big. It just has to be faithful. Perhaps it's speaking Job's words out loud. The Lord gives, and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord, not because you feel it, but because you're choosing to anchor yourself to truth bigger than your emotions. Perhaps it's honest prayer. God, I don't understand this. I'm angry, confused, devastated, but I'm not walking away. I'm staying in this relationship with you, even though it hurts. Perhaps it's the simple decision. I will not let bitterness have the last word. I will not let this tragedy define my theology. I will trust that there's more to the story than I can see right now. Job's breakthrough came after chapters of wrestling. Your breakthrough may not come today, but faithfulness today prepares the ground for tomorrow's breakthrough. The one obedient step is this: keep talking to God, even when He's not talking back. Keep trusting God, even when circumstances argue against it. Keep believing God is good, even when life is very, very hard. That's the faith that survives. That's the obedience that endures. Job's story has echoed through 4,000 years because it speaks to something universal: the mystery of suffering and the choice to trust anyway. You've seen how Job faced the unthinkable and chose faithfulness over bitterness, how he wrestled honestly with God instead of walking away, how his breakthrough came not through explanations, but through encountering God Himself. This isn't just ancient history. This is the pattern faith follows in every generation, including yours. If you're in your job moment right now, sitting in your own ash heap, wondering if God sees you, hear this clearly. Your story isn't over. The chapters ahead aren't written yet. What looks like devastation today may be the setup for restoration you can't yet imagine. Take your one obedient step today, not because you understand everything, but because you're choosing to trust the one who does. Faith Burst exists to build this kind of faith, not shallow optimism, but deep-rooted trust that survives the storms. Each episode unpacks a biblical moment where someone faced the impossible and discovered God's faithfulness. Short enough for your commute, deep enough to change your perspective, practical enough to apply before lunch. Come back tomorrow for another story, another moment where faith met crisis and endured. And if Job's story resonated with you, share it. Send this to someone sitting in their own ashes, wondering if they can hold on. Let them know they're not alone. Let them see that faith can survive even this. God met Job in the whirlwind. He's meeting people in their whirlwinds still. This is Faith Burst, short enough to watch, strong enough to change your life. See you tomorrow.